The rain tapped steadily on the windows of Gangnam General Hospital, drowning the city's usual noise in a soft, haunting rhythm. Dr. Min Seo-jin stood alone in the dimly lit corridor of the cardiology wing, staring at a nameplate recently fixed to the door of a consultation room. It read, Dr. Han Ji-woo, consultant cardiologist, a name she hadn't heard in 6 years. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, as if reacting to her memories. Ji-woo had vanished without warning years ago, abandoning their medical residency and leaving Seo-jin to handle the fallout. She had told herself to forget him, to move on. But now he was here. Not just in the city, but in her hospital. Min. A voice called gently from behind. It was Nurse Yu Hygiene, her closest colleague. You all right? Seo-jin turned quickly, masking her shock with a tired smile.
Yes.
Just a long shift. But her mind was racing. Why would Ji-woo return now? And why under a new title, consultant? Hadn't he failed his board exams? The questions spiraled as she walked back to the staff lounge. Her phone vibrated. A message popped up from an unknown number. Do you trust the man behind that door? She froze. The message disappeared before she could take a screenshot. Heart pounding, she checked the sender again. No number. No trace. That night, she returned home to her small flat in Seocho district. The rain hadn't stopped. It now thrashed angrily against her windows as if Seoul itself was warning her. She opened her old photo album, flipping to a page from university days. There was a picture of her and Ji-woo, smiling in their white coats. He had always been charming, brilliant even, but secretive. She remembered how he'd once disappeared for 2 weeks, then returned as though nothing had happened. She had let it go. But maybe she shouldn't have. The next morning, Seo-jin requested access to Ji-woo's recent patient records. The hospital admin frowned, but complied. As she scrolled through the files, one entry caught her eye. A patient named Choi Min-hyuk had died during a routine procedure last month, under Ji-woo's care. The notes were vague. Too vague. No incident report. No follow-up. No autopsy. Seo-jin's fingers trembled slightly as she printed the file. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. As she folded the document into her coat pocket, she sensed someone watching her. She turned, but the hallway was empty. She didn't realize that far above her, in a corner of the hospital's unused surveillance room, a red recording light had just turned off. Dr. Min Seo-jin sat in her office, the printed file of Choi Min-hyuk resting quietly on her desk. The air in the room was still, heavy with doubt. She turned the pages again, this time reading slowly. The surgical report was missing a signature. The discharge summary was unsigned. Worse, the witness line at the bottom of the consent form was blank. She stood abruptly and headed to the records department. "Excuse me," she said to the clerk behind the counter. "I need the full file on Choi Min-hyuk, including scans, consent forms, and the death certificate." The clerk typed quickly, then frowned. "There's no such file in the central database, doctor." Seo-jin's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I have a printed report here." The clerk checked again, more carefully this time. "There's no registered patient by that name in the past 3 months. Are you sure the name's correct?" Seo-jin nodded slowly, a cold feeling creeping into her chest. "I saw it myself." Back in her office, she opened the hospital's internal portal and tried searching for the file again. Nothing. Even the printed copy she had was no longer saved on the system. The name had vanished. It was as if Choi Min-hyuk had never existed. Suddenly, her office phone rang. Startled, she picked up. A voice, male and unfamiliar, whispered one word. "Stop." Then silence. She slammed the phone down and locked her door. Her heart thundered in her chest. Who was watching her?
Who had deleted the file?
She decided to find someone outside the hospital. Someone who wouldn't be tracked. That night, she met with an old university acquaintance, Kang Hyun-soo, now a freelance investigative journalist with a sharp eye for buried corruption. They met at a quiet Pojangmaka stall in Mapo district, where drunk businessmen usually passed unnoticed. "So," Hyun-soo said, sipping his soju, You're saying there was a patient who died, and now every trace of him is gone? Seojin nodded. And the doctor involved is someone I used to trust. Someone with a history. History like what? Like vanishing.
Lying.
Faking credentials. Hyun-soo's expression darkened. I've seen this before. Sometimes hospitals bury deaths when malpractice is involved, especially if there's money behind it. He slid a small voice recorder onto the table. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Seojin hesitated. But then she began to speak. As her words spilled out into the night air, she felt the weight of the truth begin to shift. For the first time, she wasn't alone. But just across the street, inside a parked black sedan with tinted windows, someone was listening too. A phone screen glowed faintly with her voice. Recorded. Monitored. And Jiwoo, seated in the back seat, did not blink. 3 days passed. Dr. Min Seojin moved through the hospital halls as if nothing had changed, but inside, she was unraveling. Every smile she gave was a mask. Every step, calculated. She began to notice things, small things. A janitor, who always seemed to appear wherever she went. A maintenance worker with no name tag, lingering near her office. The CCTV camera above the main stairwell, once functional, now dark. And yet, no one else seemed to notice. In the early hours of Friday morning, Hyun-soo sent her a message. Found something.
Meet me tonight.
Come alone. That night, they met again, this time inside an old bookstore tucked between cafes in Jongno. It smelled of damp paper and dust, and the owner barely looked up as they entered the back room. Hyun-soo was already there, his laptop open, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. There's a hidden server, he began. Buried deep inside the hospital network. Not part of the main system. I found a backdoor through an old email server they forgot to decommission. He turned the screen toward her. There it was, a directory titled S-Records. Inside, dozens of encrypted files. This is where they store everything they don't want found, he said.
Deaths.
Complaints. Altered test results. And look at this. He opened one of the files. It was Choi Min-hyuk.
Alive.
Recorded. Annotated. But the final page was terrifying. A list of payments. Transfers to an unknown bank account. The amount was huge. Seojin stared at the bottom signature. Han Ji-woo. Her hands clenched into fists. So, he's doing this for money. And no one's stopping him. Hyun-soo nodded. I think this is just the beginning. Some of the other names, they're still active patients. Seojin stood, her voice quiet but certain. We need to expose him. As she turned to leave, Hyun-soo grabbed her arm.
Wait.
There's more. I traced one of the accounts. It links to a company called Sunjin Biotech. Not a hospital. A research firm. A front.
Possibly.
Their name came up in a corruption case years ago. Medical testing without approval. Seojin's mind raced. Was Jiwoo selling patient data? Experimenting on the vulnerable? She left the bookstore with a copy of the S-Records loaded onto a flash drive, hidden deep inside her coat. But she didn't notice the man leaning on a motorbike across the street. Helmet on, visor down, still as stone. When she passed, he didn't move. He simply reached for his phone and sent a message. She has the drive. Dr. Min Seojin hurried through the back streets of Jongno, clutching her coat tighter around her. The night air was sharp, the neon signs above flickering like anxious eyes. She kept glancing behind her, but the streets appeared empty. She didn't know she was being followed. The man on the motorbike kept his distance, gliding through the alleys without sound. He was trained. Precise. His orders were simple. Retrieve the drive, leave no trace. Seojin reached her apartment, a modest unit on the 8th floor of an old block in Yunpyeong. She double-locked the door, drew the curtains, and hid the flash drive inside an old medical textbook from her student years. Just as she was about to turn off the lights, the intercom buzzed. She froze. No one ever visited this late. She approached cautiously. The screen showed only static. Then a voice came through, low and distorted. Return what you stole. Seo-jin's blood ran cold. She didn't respond. The buzzing stopped. That night, she slept with the lights on and a kitchen knife under her pillow. The next morning, she went to see Hyun-soo again. But he wasn't answering his phone. She arrived at his flat in Hongdae. The front door was slightly ajar. "Hyun-soo," she called, stepping inside. No answer. The room was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered across the floor. His laptop was gone.
So was his bag.
But there was no blood. Seo-jin backed away, heart pounding. On the fridge, held up by a single magnet, was a piece of paper. One sentence, typed in red ink. He asked too many questions. She stumbled out into the corridor, trying not to panic. Someone had taken Hyun-soo. Or worse. Back in her apartment that evening, she opened her hidden flash drive and began reviewing the S records again. She needed answers fast. One file caught her eye. Patient, Park Yerin. Age, 19. Diagnosis, psychiatric observation. Status, deceased. Location, unknown. Notes, transferred to Sunjin Biotech, 2021. No further documentation. Seo-jin frowned. A 19-year-old girl, labeled unstable, and then disappeared? She remembered the name. Park Yerin had once come to the ER after collapsing in a bus station. She was terrified, shaking. Said someone had been chasing her. At the time, she was dismissed as delusional. Now Seo-jin wasn't so sure. She opened her encrypted hospital email and typed a message to an old contact in neurology, someone she could still trust. Subject: Do you remember Park Yerin? She hit send. Moments later, her computer screen flickered. Then went black. A message appeared in the center. You were warned. Dr. Min. Seo-jin didn't sleep that night. She sat on her sofa, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the black screen. The message was gone now, but the fear remained. Every sound outside, every footstep in the hallway, made her flinch. By morning, she had made her decision. If she was going to uncover the truth, she had to go deeper. Deeper into the hospital. Into the places no one talked about. She waited until her shift started, blending in with the usual bustle of morning rounds. On the surface, she was calm, professional. But inside, she was counting every step towards the north wing. It was an old section of the hospital, mostly unused after the last renovation. Staff called it the forgotten ward, where broken equipment and files too old to scan were stored. And yet the power was still running there. She passed through the rusted double doors, her ID card still granting access. The air was stale. Paint peeled from the walls like dry skin. Most of the rooms were empty, except one. A locked room with a keypad. No label. No sign. Seo-jin hesitated. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out Hyun-soo's old notebook. On the last page, scrawled in the corner, was a 4-digit number, 2467. She entered it. The lock clicked. The room inside was dark but clean. Too clean. A desk. A wall of filing cabinets. And against the far wall a hospital bed with restraints. She swallowed hard and stepped closer. On the desk, a single open file. Patient, Park Yerin. Status, transferred. Last entry, subject responsive to compound S, 37. Proceeded with phase 2. There was a USB port on the cabinet terminal. She inserted her flash drive and copied the file. But as the data loaded, a window popped up. Live feed connection. A camera feed. Seo-jin's breath caught. A white room. No windows. Harsh lights. And in the center, strapped to a gurney, was a girl.
Pale. Thin.
Eyes open but empty.
Park Yerin. Alive.
Before she could process it, the screen glitched. Then a face appeared. Han Ji-woo. Dr. Min, he said calmly, you should have stayed out of this. She slammed the laptop shut. Her heart was racing. She couldn't breathe. The door behind her clicked.
Locked.
She turned slowly. A man stood there. Not Ji-woo, but someone she recognized, the janitor who was always around. Only now he wasn't carrying a mop. He stepped forward, closing the distance. Seo-jin backed away, searching for anything she could use. I don't want to hurt you, he said softly, but if you scream, I will. In a flash, she grabbed the metal clipboard from the wall and swung. It connected. The man staggered, and she ran, through the ward, down the stairs, through a fire exit. She didn't stop until she was back in her car, hands shaking as she turned the key. As the engine roared to life, her phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. You know too much now. Dr. Min Seo-jin left Seoul that night. She didn't pack. She didn't tell anyone. She just drove, pushing the accelerator down until the city lights vanished behind her. Only when she reached the mountains near Gangwon, where the roads grew narrow and signal bars dropped to none, did she stop. She found a rundown motel tucked beneath the trees. No questions asked. Cash only. Inside her room, she pulled the curtains tight and checked the flash drive. The files were still there. The footage of Park Yurin. The research notes on Compound S-37. The logs from Sunjin Biotech marked as classified. Everything pointed back to Han Ji-woo. But why was he hiding it? And what was S-37? She connected the drive to an old laptop she kept in her car for emergencies. It had no Wi-Fi. No tracking. Safe. The research logs described S-37 as a neural suppressant capable of dampening emotional responses, rewriting memory pathways, and inducing total compliance in test subjects. Seo-jin felt her stomach turn. This wasn't medicine. It was control. Then she found a secondary folder buried in the metadata. Project Eden Protocol. It wasn't just a drug. It was a program. Patient recruitment. Trials. Failures. Terminations. Each name came with a timestamp and final result. Some marked recovered. Most were marked lost. Park Yurin's file was different. Her photo was updated. Recent. Her pulse readings were still active. She wasn't just alive. She was still being used. Seo-jin printed the files, sealed them in a plastic envelope, and hid them beneath the mattress. Then she made a decision. She couldn't do this alone. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Yumi? It's me.
Min.
I need your help.
A pause.
Then a quiet voice. Where are you? By the next afternoon, journalist Han Yumi arrived at the motel. Short hair, sharp eyes, voice always calm. She'd once exposed a pharmaceutical giant for covering up child deaths. Seo-jin trusted her. As she explained everything, Yumi didn't interrupt. She just listened, flipping through the printed pages, her expression tightening with every line. When Seo-jin finished, Yumi finally spoke. We're going to bring them down. But we have to be smart. They're watching you now. She handed Seo-jin a burner phone and a new ID. You're not Dr. Min Seo-jin anymore. Not for now. Who am I then? Yumi smiled faintly. Just another ghost in the system. They moved quickly. Seo-jin stayed hidden while Yumi began making discreet contact with whistleblowers, former employees of Sunjin Biotech, silent nurses, even a retired doctor who had once been in charge of special cases. Pieces began to fall into place. But with each answer came new risks. One night, a warning arrived on Yumi's encrypted email. A photo.
It was Seo-jin.
Taken that morning, near the motel. They had found her. Seo-jin didn't scream. She didn't panic. She grabbed the photo, flipped over the mattress, snatched the plastic envelope, and stuffed it into her coat. Yumi was already packing her camera and laptop. They were out of the room in less than a minute. The motel owner looked up from behind the counter, but Yumi flashed him a sharp glance. No words were needed. The car was already running by the time they reached it. As they sped back toward the main road, Seo-jin's hands trembled on her lap. They know where I sleep, she said. They're coming faster now. Yumi didn't answer. Her eyes scanned the mirrors constantly. Every car behind them was a threat. Every face on the pavement was a watcher. They drove without stopping until they reached a storage facility near Incheon, one of Yumi's emergency safe points. Inside a dark metal container, they found shelter, old supplies, backup batteries, burners, water, protein bars. Everything Yumi had prepared years ago, in case she ever exposed the wrong people. Seo-jin slumped against the wall, breathing hard. We have to go public. Yumi hesitated. We don't have enough yet. The world won't believe a few documents and a video of a girl in a white room. We need names, testimonies, proof from the inside. Seo-jin rubbed her temples. Then we need to get back into the hospital. Yumi shook her head. They'll be watching it like a fortress now. Seo-jin's eyes narrowed. Unless we don't go through the front. That night, Yumi made contact with an old source, an ex-security officer from the hospital who now drove delivery trucks. His name was Taekji, and he owed Yumi a favor. He agreed to meet them at dawn. When the sky turned gray, they waited in an alley near the Sunjin Biotech supply entrance. Taekji arrived in a delivery van. He was older than Seo-jin expected, with a crooked smile and eyes that had seen too much. This van's got clearance to go into the basement loading docks, he said. You've got 10 minutes once you're in. No more. They climbed into the back, hiding beneath boxes of hospital linens and 4 fluids. Seo-jin's heart pounded as the gates opened and the van rolled forward. Security scanned the ID. The van passed through. Once underground, Taekji opened the back doors.
Go.
And don't come back through me. They ran. Down a corridor that reeked of bleach and steel, through maintenance shafts, past storage rooms filled with cold silence. Yumi checked her watch. 8 minutes. They reached the central archives, a locked room connected to the restricted patient database. Seo-jin pulled out the stolen keycard from Hyunsu's bag. It still worked. The door slid open with a beep. Rows and rows of medical records filled the space. Digital terminals lined the walls, blinking softly. Yumi plugged in her drive and began copying everything. Then Seo-jin froze. A door inside the archive creaked open. From the shadows stepped a woman. White coat. Dark hair. Familiar eyes. Dr. Chai Mi-kyung, head of neurology, and Seo-jin's old mentor. Seo-jin, she said. You shouldn't be here. Dr. Chai Mi-kyung stepped into the light. Her expression was unreadable, no anger, no surprise. Just silence, like someone who had known this moment would come. You always ask too many questions, she said softly. Seo-jin took a step back, but Yumi remained still, the flash drive still copying files behind her. You were part of it? Seo-jin asked, her voice cracking. You knew what they were doing to those people? Mi-kyung nodded slowly. I didn't have a choice. Seo-jin's voice rose. There's always a choice. Mi-kyung sighed and leaned against the archive shelf. When I first joined the Eden Protocol, I thought we were helping trauma victims. People lost in their minds, unable to function. The government funded the trials. The results were promising: controlled memory restructuring, emotional healing. It felt hopeful. She looked directly at Seo-jin now, eyes heavy with regret. But then the funding changed. So did the goals. They wanted obedience, not healing. They brought in military consultants. The patients became test subjects. Disposable. Yumi spoke quietly. And you stayed. Mi-kyung didn't answer right away. Because I thought if I left, someone worse would take my place. I tried to protect as many as I could. I hid files, smuggled out data. It wasn't enough. Seo-jin's fists clenched. Park Yirin. You let them keep using her. Mi-kyung's eyes filled with pain. I begged them to let her go. She responded well to the initial treatment. She should have been released. But she had a rare neural signature. They said she was ideal. Seo-jin took another step closer. Where is she? Mi-kyung hesitated. They moved her. Off-site. There's a second facility. It's not on the official maps. Only a few of us know about it. Yumi stepped forward. Then take us there. Mi-kyung shook her head. I can't. If I show my face, they'll know I've turned. But I can give you something. She pulled out a thin data chip from her coat pocket and held it out. This has the location, coordinates, entry protocols. You'll need disguises and a way past the outer gate. The rest, you'll have to figure out yourself. Seo-jin took it. Why help us now? Mi-kyung looked at her, a tear trailing down her cheek. Because I remember who you were before this place changed you. And I want to believe there's still a piece of that woman left in me too. Suddenly, a beep rang out from the terminal. Download complete. Yumi yanked the drive free and turned to run. We have to go.
Now.
Mi-kyung stepped aside, but as Seo-jin passed her, she whispered, Be careful. Some of them they volunteered. But not all. And not all of them want to be saved. The two women ran.
Through the archives.
Down the maintenance hall. Back to the service elevator they'd mapped earlier. Alarms hadn't gone off.
Yet.
They made it to the van. Taekji was gone. But the keys were still inside. Seo-jin floored the accelerator, speeding out of the facility as the early morning sun cut across the skyline. They had the files, the location, and one final chance to uncover the truth. But every step forward only pulled them deeper into the dark. They changed vehicles 3 times before heading south, taking back roads and avoiding CCTV intersections. Yumi disguised herself as a logistics worker. Seo-jin wore contact lenses and dyed her hair. The data chip from Dr. Mi-kyung led them to the mountains outside Namyangju. Hidden among a forest reserve was a site labeled as a decommissioned military research station. No mention of it appeared on public records. No signs. No roads. Only coordinates. They abandoned the car and trekked uphill through tangled brush and pine trees. Fog clung to the earth like breath frozen in time. Then they saw it. A concrete bunker embedded into the slope.
Camouflaged. Silent.
A single checkpoint gate with 2 guards, both armed. Yumi scanned the perimeter with her binoculars. There's a shift change every 4 hours. We'll go in during the crossover. Seo-jin's voice was steady. What if they don't keep her here anymore? Yumi answered without looking away. Then we take everything. Names, logs, footage. Enough to blow this place off the map. They waited until 3:12 a.m., when the fog thickened again and the first van approached the gate. Dressed in stolen lab coats and medical masks, they slipped from the shadows and climbed beneath the van, gripping the undercarriage as it passed through the security gate. Inside, the facility was silent. Fluorescent lights buzzed. The halls were pale green, sterile and cold. They dropped into a maintenance corridor and navigated through narrow shafts, following the map encoded on the chip. After 30 minutes, they reached a sector marked Deep Cognition Therapy, Level D. Seo-jin paused. Her hand touched the wall, fingertips trembling. I've been here before. Yumi glanced at her. You're sure? Seo-jin nodded. They bypassed the biometric lock using Mi-kyung's data and slipped into the ward. Rows of white rooms, glass observation panels, monitoring stations. Inside one of the rooms, a girl sat on the floor, legs crossed, staring at the wall. Seo-jin gasped. That's her. Park Yirin. She rushed to the panel, but the door wouldn't open. No handle, no key code. Yumi pulled out a small device and connected it to the security console. A few tense seconds later, the lock hissed. Seo-jin stepped in. The girl didn't move. Her hair had grown long and messy. Her skin was pale from lack of sunlight. But her eyes were still sharp, still alive. Yirin, Seo-jin whispered. It's me. I'm here to get you out. The girl looked up slowly and smiled. But it wasn't relief. It was recognition.
Clara, she said.
Yumi froze in the doorway. Seo-jin blinked. What did you call me? Yirin stood. Her voice was calm, steady. You don't remember, do you? We were both in the first group. The prototypes. You were number 2. I was number 5. Seo-jin's heart pounded. Memories flickered. White light, metal walls, voices like echoes.
No.
I wasn't a patient. I was a doctor. Yirin tilted her head. That's what they told you. Behind them, an alarm blared. Yumi swore under her breath. We have to move.
Now.
But Seo-jin stood frozen. Because something inside her had just cracked open. And the truth was no longer outside the glass. It was inside her. The sirens echoed through the halls, pulsing like a heartbeat. Red lights flashed overhead as steel shutters began to fall, one by one, sealing exits. Yumi grabbed Seo-jin's arm. We have less than 3 minutes before lockdown. Move. Seo-jin tore her gaze away from Yirin and nodded, but her steps were slower now, hesitant. Her mind reeled from what Yirin had said. Prototypes. Number 2. What if everything she remembered was built on lies? They turned down a side corridor, heading toward the emergency stairwell. Yirin followed, silent and alert. Her eyes flicked left and right, scanning with eerie precision. As they reached the base level, the sound of boots echoed behind them. Armed guards. Yumi cursed. Upstairs. Fast. They sprinted up the stairwell. At level B2, they ducked into a server room. Banks of machines hummed with heat and data. Seo-jin stopped.
Wait.
If this is where they store neural profiles, then... She rushed to the nearest console and connected the device Mi-kyung had given her. Lines of code spilled across the screen. Folders opened, dozens of patient IDs, voice logs, memory scans. Then she found it. Subject 002. Name: Seo-jin/Clara Nam. Role: Memory Construction Supervisor. Status: In treatment. Procedure: Embedded personality layer. Her throat tightened. She clicked on a video file. A lab, sterile and cold. A younger version of herself sat in a chair, surrounded by doctors. She wasn't speaking. She was being spoken to. Words repeated over and over. You are Dr. Seo-jin. You are here to help. You are not part of the experiment. Seo-jin staggered back. It's not real. I'm not. Yirin stepped beside her. You were one of us. You helped them, yes, but they broke you too. Yumi pulled the chip from the console and grabbed Seo-jin's hand. We have to go. They reached the exit corridor, but a dozen guards blocked the tunnel ahead. Guns raised. Yirin stepped forward. Let me. She walked calmly into the open. The guards hesitated. She raised her arms, then spoke a single code phrase like a trigger. Every guard froze. One by one, they collapsed, unconscious. Seo-jin stared, stunned. What did you do? Yirin turned, her voice cold. They're remote-linked. Part of a failsafe. I was the override. They didn't stop again. They climbed the last level and burst into the night air. Above them, drones zipped through the clouds, searching. But Yumi had already activated the scrambler beacon. The hillside flared with interference signals. They vanished into the forest. Hours later, they reached a contact point. A safe house beneath an abandoned train station. Inside, Yumi connected the chip to a transmitter. It's all here. Names, funding, experiments, and the memory suppression protocols. Seo-jin sat quietly. Her hands trembled. What happens now? Yumi gave her a sad smile. The world finds out. But Seo-jin's gaze was distant, because deep inside her, the real battle had only just begun.